This is Nick from Hemlock and Hide.
And Leanne from Hemlock and Hide.
Also.
So if you're just getting started, there's going to be kind of like an arsenal of tools that we recommend. It's going to be like the minimum you need to get started.
And we'll also let you know where we think it makes sense to upgrade those tools. So if you're just getting started, you can make a bag similar to this. Just pretend there's no rivets, no hardware, just very plain, not an adjustable strap, just a very basic design. And all you would really need to do that would be to have some thread, some needles, pricking irons, a maul, a sharp blade, and that's it. So that would get you the most basic design, raw edges, a fixed length strap, maybe a magnetic closure, and you would also probably be using Chicago screws instead of rivets. So that's pretty much what you'd be using, but I imagine at this point you're beyond being a novice and you want to take your craft to the next level. Obviously there's nothing wrong with doing a hand-stitched bag, and something that, if it's something you really enjoy doing, we still use hand stitching in some of our designs anyway. But before we get to using a sewing machine, we'll talk about all the hand tools you would need to kind of level up your craft. So if you're using a utility blade, the first thing I would say is you want to change it up and go to a rotary cutter. And when you add a straight edge to it, you can get nice, long, straight cuts. It's just a lot easier and more precise. For more detailed work, I probably would recommend a claw knife. And we really love the claw knife. This lets you get into the details and do some curves much easier than using a rotary or a straight blade. And these are tools we use daily. The right tools will definitely make your lives a lot easier. And I think the next step up from this, after you're using your pattern and a knife to cut your work, is going to something like dies. So we have a whole wall of dies that we use to cut out our bags. Think of these as giant cookie cutters that give you precise cuts and consistent cuts bag to bag. Obviously not everyone needs a clicker this large, but there are smaller ones available, and you can even kind of make your own, a makeshift one, using a shop press with a welded piece of metal on it. If you want to upgrade to rivets from Chicago screws, you'll need a rivet setter. So it looks like that. And these fit different dies. This one is from Buckle Guy. And you'll need a hole punch to correspond to your rivet. So for us, we quickly went away, well, not so quickly went away from the hand rivets, and we got ourselves a rivet setter. We actually have two, and this was the first one we got, and we had it set for just rivets and for magnets in our case. So if you want really consistent rivets set every time the right way, getting one of these is a pretty good investment. And you can see this one we kind of rigged through our table here so that we could use it a little bit easier to get the leverage with our legs. If you're crazy, there's also even pneumatic ones that can set rivets for you, if you're into that. I think my next piece of advice is if you're going from a raw edge to something that's burnished, you can get yourself a hand burnisher. This is made out of cocoa bolo wood, and you just kind of moisten the edge of the leather and run this across it. If you know you're going to be burnishing a lot, like doing maybe belts or or straps, you can do something with an attachment on like a Dremel tool, which is really helpful. This one we use specifically for some detail spots. That's why it's pointed, that are hard to get to with our big machine there. So this is our variable speed burnisher. We decided early on that this was going to be one of the first tools we actually invested in, because burnishing by hand just takes a lot longer. This saved us a bunch of time. we skipped a step. So you'll want to get a beveler. If you're going to finish your edges at all, I would highly suggest that you get a beveler so that you can bevel and then burnish your edges. This is our Palo Santo edge beveler, size 1+. It's a long blade, and it takes off the corner of your raw edge. So once you cut your edge, you bevel it, you burnish it, you want to either apply something to seal up the edges. You can burnish with beeswax to seal them up. You can use edge paint or dyes. We like to use edge paint, so we've got our edge paint here, and we use this paint applicator to go onto the edges. So that just spins there, and it applies the paint evenly so it can dry evenly. The next level of beveling is a beveling machine like this one. Basically, this takes all 4 edges off at once. It makes doing straps a lot easier. One of my favorite tools is kind of just, it's a maul. It keeps your tools from getting all banged up, and it's nice and heavy, and it gets the job done. So I highly recommend the maul. These are weighted. I think this one was 48 ounces. So this one's pretty heavy. We have a smaller one, but we don't really use that as much. And we have 2 of these. If you use something like a steel hammer, you'll end up banging up your tools and they'll mushroom out on the end. And you want to treat your tools right so you can use them for as long as possible. If you started hand stitching, you probably have pricking irons. We like this one from KS Blade Punch. But the next level of that is a industrial leather sewing machine. So obviously you'd be getting pretty serious to invest your money and time into learning how to use a sewing machine. We have 2 Cobra Class 26s from Leather Machine Company. And the reason we have 2 is it allows us to batch 2 different colors of the same design at once. So it gives us a little bit more efficiency. Should we get another machine, we probably would get a different type of machine and set it up for like a single-use purpose. So that could be something like a binding edge or a high post bed for top stitching or something like that. What we like about these is they have servo motors, which allows you to go slow with the same amount of power. We've got a big wheel on the bottom here, which works kind of like the gears on your bike to help make it easier for the machine. And we added EPS to our first machine and bought the second one with the electronic positioning system so that the needle can end either up or down wherever you'd like. So I'm just tapping once and it's going once. But you can really go slow or fast. And we actually don't have ours set up to go all that fast. And then the EPS really helps on back tacking. Now it's needle up. So for us, we've taken a lot of time to get these to the specs that we want. Stitch length, height of the presser foot, and even grinding down certain aspects of the throat plate to get them as custom to what we need as possible. And that's something you can obviously do as you get into it. Here you can see where we ground this down. We also added plasti dip to the outside presser foot, the walking foot, which alleviated a lot of the marking we were getting. And we also sanded and polished down the center foot bottom to the same kind of results. If you've ever used a sewing machine at all before, it's pretty similar to using a leather sewing machine, just more powered and obviously built for leather. I definitely would recommend a drop down edge guide to keep your lines nice and straight makes it a lot easier. Aside from that, keeping a fresh needle in there and also oiling it when you need to will keep those going for a long time. The first one we had is from 2017, and the second one, I don't remember what year we got that, but we've had minimal issues with these two machines. The last but certainly not least of our tool recommendations is a bone folder. It's usually used, I think, in like printmaking, but this will help you get a nice creased edge on designs that have gussets like this. Now here's some bonus footage. Raw edge. This is what I just burnished on this side. You can see it's slicked back over. And then we can paint the edge. And let that dry. Another thing you can do is obviously add your logo to your bags or to your products or wallets or whatever you're making using a brass stamp. We use a hot press when we're gold foiling, which gives a nice crisp gold foiled stamp. You set the gold side up and then you let the press heat up to about 300 degrees, and then you give it a quick stamp with enough pressure and you have a gold foiled logo. Here's our dried or almost dried edge. So these aren't tools, but they're very important. We use 4 different kinds of adhesives. Now these are all considered permanent, and we use them in different places for different reasons. So we'll go over that real quick. So we'll start with the one we probably use the least amount, Ted's tape. I know people love this. It's a double-sided tape. We use this, I think, in places where we just need to be extra clean. It works well, especially when you're going to sew over it. And that's where I'd recommend using it. What we use more often is Beacon Fabri-Tac. It's a permanent adhesive. It does give you a little bit of wiggle room. It's not like a rubber cement where it contacts and it's stuck. This gives you the ability to wiggle it just a little bit before it sets in, and it dries pretty fast. So if you glue up your piece and then you're going to sew, it probably takes about 5 minutes or so, and it's ready to be sewn. So everywhere else, we're using a water-based permanent glue. It bonds really nicely. It takes about 10 or so minutes to dry. You would coat both sides of your piece and then put it together, and then use a roller to smooth out any inconsistencies. And it gives a really strong, nice bond. The last glue we use the least amount, and it's only because we kind of have to, and that's barge. We use that. It's a rubber cement, and we use it on some top handles, some bridle top handles specifically, just because it's needed. It needs that extra strong, tight bond there. This is obviously, it's the most toxic one. All the other ones are water-based, and it's something you would want to use with your windows open, with proper ventilation, and try to not breathe it in as much as possible. So that was a pretty quick overview of the tools we use and we like to use, and what the upgrades of each of those tools kind of look like. We'd love to hear what your favorite tools are, and which ones you upgraded first. Here's what Leanne's currently working on. As you can see, all those tools are strewn about. Oh, there's 2 we didn't talk about. Scratch all, always helpful to mark your place in your leather piece. And this is just a different type of bone folder that Leanne prefers the shape of. And here's the roller. So when you're gluing and then you roll. Here's another type of edge paint applicator. All right, we'll see you on the next one. Hopefully that was a little bit helpful for you.